Good, thank you. This meeting of the Coventry Town Council will now come to order at 6:01 PM. Roll call, Ms. Ludwig?
Here.
Mrs. Shockley?
Here.
Mr. LeBlanc?
Here.
Here. Mrs. Lima?
Here.
Mrs. Dixon here. I'd like to welcome Mr. Robert Robillard, Director of Human Services, who is our acting town manager, while our town manager, Mr. Marchand, is away. Welcome, Mr. Robillard. Mr. Shockley, please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and describe the emergency evacuation plan.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
In an emergency, please go out the back door and go out the doors to your right where you are.
Thank you. May I have a motion to adjourn into executive session at 6:02 PM?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Ms. Ludwig? Oh, yes, I forgot. Thank you so much. We're going to adjourn into executive session for the following. Per Rhode Island General Law 42465A1, closed pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42465A1 for discussion of job performance, character, physical, and mental health of a person or persons, specifically for the council to discuss the moderator candidates for the financial town meeting to be held on May 24th, 2022 at 7 PM, and closed pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42465A1 for discussion of job performance, character, physical, or mental health of a person or persons, specifically for the council to discuss candidate for the Coventry Historic Preservation Commission. So I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, Ms. Ludwig,
Yes.
Mrs. Shockley,
Yes.
Mr. LeBlanc,
Yes.
Mrs. Lima,
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon, yes. 5 yeas, no nays. The motion passes. Members of the public who are with us, we will be returning at 6:30 PM.
working on that. Well, I gotta punch this.
Members of the council, may I have a motion to adjourn from executive session at 6:03?
So moved.
6:31, thank you.
I'll
May I have
second
a
the motion.
second? Thank you. Roll call, Ms. Ludwig,
Yes.
Mrs. Shockley,
Yes.
Mr. LeBlanc,
Yes.
Mrs. Lima,
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon, yes. 5 yeas, no nays, the motion passes. May I have a motion to seal the minutes of the executive session?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Roll call, Ms. Ludwig,
Yes.
Mrs. Shockley,
Yes.
Mr. LeBlanc,
Yes.
Mrs. Lima,
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon, yes. 5 yeas, no nays, the motion passes. Members of the council, members of the public, the town council met in executive session for the following. Closed pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42465A1 for discussion of job performance, character, physical or mental health of a person or persons, specifically for the council to discuss potential moderator candidates for the financial town meeting to be held May 24th, 2022 at 7 p.m. A discussion took place, no votes were taken. If there are people who would like to apply to be moderator, please send a letter or email of interest and a resume to the town clerk, Ms. Amatrano, within the next 2 weeks. Interviews will take place the beginning of May. And closed pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42465A1 for discussion of job performance, character, physical or mental health of a persons or persons, specifically for the council to discuss candidates for the Coventry Historic Preservation Commission. A discussion took place and a vote will take place later in the evening. Before we continue with the meeting, I do want to emphasize the following town council rules and procedures that are included in section 3.3 on code of conduct by citizens or other visitors. Citizens and visitors attending town council meetings shall maintain proper decorum and good conduct. Any person making personal, profane, or slanderous remarks may be removed from the council meeting if the town sergeant is so directed by the town council president, and the person so removed shall be further barred from attendance at the same council sessions. No placards, signs, or banners shall be allowed at town council meetings while the town council is in session. No food or beverages other than water shall be allowed. And citizens and visitors will refrain from private conversations while the town council is in session. All cell phones and pages shall be turned to silent mode while the town council is in session. If a citizen or visitor wishes to utilize a cell phone, it shall be done outside of the meeting. The foregoing limitations shall also apply to town council members and staff. We do welcome you all, and we're happy to see a good turnout for this evening's meeting. I'm very pleased to move to Agenda C2, Certificate of Special Recognition to Coventry School for its selection as Special Olympics National Unified Champion School. Mrs. Lima and I sponsored this recognition. Mrs. Christine Hoskins, please come to the podium and bring any other members of the staff or students who are with you this evening. I say right over there. We also have the principal of the high school, Miss Brooke Maycomber. Welcome. And before we read the certificate, I would like to have each of the students come up to the podium and give their name.
I'm Sophia. Sophia Daughter.
Say it now. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, my name is Cameron Hargis.
Thank you.
My name is Emily Smith.
Matthew Sout.
My name is Grace Petrarca.
Well, welcome. Gather all around the podium. Councilmember Lima and I attended the ceremony at the high school on April 1st, 2022. The entire student body was in the gym, along with the teachers and staff, alumni of the program, and members of the student body that initiated the program. It was a very, very joyous, loud, noisy occasion. but everyone was super, super happy. I'm now going to read a certificate of recognition to all of you. So please gather around so that we can properly see you all. Whereas on April 1st, 2022, Coventry High School received a coveted recognition as one of only 5 in the United States to be recognized as a Special Olympics National Unified Champion School by the program sponsor Hasbro. Whereas this program was a grassroots effort started by a student, Jaya Joyce, and a Coventry High School language teacher, Christine Hoskins, who are to be commended for their initiative and drive to create an inclusive high school culture. We also recognize these students who were an integral part of the program initiation: Riley Campbell, Hannah Gebler, Juliana Sinat, and Abigail Sinat. Whereas the Coventry High School Special Olympics National Unified Program pairs Coventry High School students with students who have intellectual disabilities in a program designated to promote inclusion and to provide opportunities for students to participate on champion volleyball, basketball, and cheer teams, to participate in chorus, and to participate in fundraising activities in the community. Whereas the Coventry High School actively encourages students and staff to take this pledge. As a member of the Coventry community, I pledge to look for the lonely, the isolated, the left out, the challenged, and the bullied. And I pledge to overcome the fear of difference and to replace it with the power of inclusion, and I choose to include. Whereas the governor of Rhode Island, Daniel McKee, who attended the recognition program, stated that the school was setting a standard for excellence in Rhode Island. The town council recognizes Coventry High School program leaders, the Special Olympics National Unified Champions, and the students who work every day to create an environment of inclusion. In testimony thereof, and on behalf of the town council, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the town to be affixed this 11th day of April, 2022. Please come forward. Mrs. Maycomber, would you like to make a few comments, please?
I thought you were going to ask Mrs. Hoskins to do that, but I am really happy to do this.
I am planning to ask her.
Okay. So she can
yes,
stay
everyone
up
gets
here.
a turn. Go ahead.
So a few years ago when I took over as principal, I called Christine Hoskins and, we had always kind of thought about a program like this, and we started to put it in motion, and we found that, adults can only do so much. So we ended up with the 5 students that you mentioned. We took them to a local school. We went over to Pontiac High School and met for a day with their students who they're also a banner school. And they shared some of the, things that they were doing that were successful. And our kids came back energized and just ready to hit the ground running. And this has been built from the ground up with students leading this. And that's why it's been so successful. And Christine has done a remarkable job leading this group as well. So I'm just really proud of everything that they've accomplished, the change in the culture in the building. And just, you and Hillary were in attendance, and you got to see it firsthand. You can't make that up. It is something that's really special to our building, and we're really proud of this group. And these students are phenomenal. They planned that whole event, and that event was something really special. And I'm just really proud of them.
Thank you. Mrs. Hoskins?
Your turn.
She said everything I was going to say.
Well, you're a language teacher. You can say
I
it
can say it in Spanish.
Spanish,
¿Aquí
yes.
hablan español todos? Creo que no. Yes, as Mrs. Maycomber said, it was truly a remarkable event. But what made this so successful was that it was led by students, started by students and led by students, and they gave it their all. They lived this every day. This is not something we didn't put on a show for one day. They live it in this building. So we're working hard, and, we're just very, very proud of them, very proud of them. And hopefully we're going to take this district wide and we're going to start the high school, and hopefully every school in Coventry will be a national champion school too. That's my goal. And I know it's all theirs too. So
Excellent.
thank you for this recognition.
President Dixon, if I could,
Certainly.
I think the other thing to point out for the public is how fast you guys did this, because I think the students that started was what, 2019 or something
Yes.
thereabouts.
Yes.
I mean, and not to show how young I am, but I just graduated high school in 2010, and I was lucky if I knew any of the names of the kids who had special needs that I went to school with. And that's scary and wrong to think about when I see what I saw at this high school a couple of weeks ago. So thank you for your dedication. Thank you to the students, all of you. I mean, this is a no-brainer. It makes me
Thank
very
you.
proud to be a Coventry resident.
Thank you. Thank you. And yes, you are right. This started, and that's why it took off. You know, you can't make them want this. This is something that has to come from within, and they did a remarkable job in just a very short time. And some of those girls right now, I think, are seniors in college. So unfortunately, only 2 of them could come back that day, but it really is all about their hard work. So definitely takes a village.
Okay.
So thank you. Thank you for the.
Are there any students who wish to speak? I know you put the effort in to come this evening. Okay, we're all set? Okay, thank you.
All right,
Ready? The mic's right in front of you.
Right here?
What does unified mean to you?
Okay. So
Put the microphone down a little bit, please. Thank you.
Right. So the unify is about basketball.
You play basketball. Did you tell them about your game today? Did you score?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
What has unified made for you? Have you made new friends?
Yes.
New friends? Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else?
Yeah.
You can say the microphone.
I like playing with the seniors.
Awesome. Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you. It takes a lot of courage to come to the microphone to speak to members of the town council. And I wish we had more courageous people, because we'd love to hear your comments too. So thank you very much, students. We have another one who'd like to speak, please. Okay.
They're here to see you.
Oh, you first.
Me first? No, come on. you
No,
have to
Grace
say.
first. Grace first.
What does it mean to us, Matt? Come on.
It means we're part of a team.
Yeah.
Your turn.
My turn. I get to work with amazing students like Matt that, normally I wouldn't be able to get to work with or have the opportunity to. So we've become great friends, right, Matt?
Go Oakers. Let's say go Oakers.
Go Oakers. Yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, I was asked if they could leave after the presentation, and I said if they stayed, we probably would all faint. But if the students would like to go home a little early, you may do so. So please, thank you for coming. Thank you. Okay, we're now on agenda D2, appointment, a proclamation recognizing a Coventry resident, John Vanluevan Graichen, who founded Keeping Kids Fishing. Mr. LeBlanc and I sponsored this proclamation. This is page 5 in our council packet. And Mr. LeBlanc will read the proclamation. Is the gentleman here this evening?
Yes, he is.
Please come forward. Thank you for joining us this evening. Mr. LeBlanc?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for being here tonight. I'm just going to read a proclamation to you. All right. This is presented to John Vanluevan Graichen and the nonprofit organization Keeping Kids Fishing. Whereas charitable nonprofit organizations throughout the town of Coventry contribute significantly to the high quality of life for all of our citizens. And whereas the town council of the town of Coventry wishes to recognize Coventry resident John Vanluevan Graichen, who founded the local nonprofit Keeping Kids Fishing in 2017. And whereas Mr. Graichen has donated over 230 fishing poles and tackle boxes filled with gear, all of which either he purchased himself or were donated to him for the cause of providing each and every child an opportunity to fish, with the goals of instilling in kids a similar love of fishing to the one he had developed over 5 decades ago, to inspire healthy habits and to encourage kids to get outdoors. And whereas the nonprofit Keeping Kids Fishing is dedicated to upholding the highest standards of community service, donating time and effort to making a difference in the many lives of Coventry children and others. And now, therefore, be it resolved, the town council of the town of Coventry, on behalf of its citizens, extends its sincerest appreciation to John Vanluevan Graichen and the nonprofit Keeping Kids Fishing for its 5 years of dedicated service to our community and for providing an opportunity to all children who want to learn how to fish. In testimony whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the town to be affixed this 11th day of April, 2022. Thank you very much for all your service. I always see you as I'm driving by Lake Tioga with all the children, and I know you go to other places, but I just wanted to recognize you along with President Dixon.
Thank you. Yeah, 279 was the first year that we've done this. It's been 4.5 years, and my number is now up to 1,406 fishing poles with tackle boxes donated.
Wow. I was going off of an article that I had read, but thank you very much. Really appreciate everything you do.
Thank you very much. Yeah,
Thank you so much. It's always inspiring to have men and women in the community who have a passion, who want to share that passion with other people in the community, and especially with the children. So thank you so much for all that you do. We saw you in the St. Patty's Day Parade. So you're everywhere. Land and sea. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Greatly appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And if I could just recommend to anyone having a yard sale or thinking of getting rid of their own equipment to reach out, because I know that he does. He came to my house one year and cleaned me out. So the next year I had nothing, but I think instead of having him have to go and look in every neighborhood, if we could give him a call, that could be helpful.
Excellent. Thank you, Mrs. Shockley. Welcome. I see some members of the public who are standing. If you'd like to sit down, please do find yourself a seat. There are plenty of seats, and we want you all to be comfortable, so don't be shy. Next, agenda item D2, appointment to move Ann Asumpico to a full term of office for the Coventry Historic Preservation Commission. This is our reference page 6. The motion is to approve the resolution to appoint Ann Asumpico as a full member with a term of office expiring August 1st, 2022, and to reappoint her as a full member of service to service as a full term of member to a term expiring August 1st, 2025. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Roll call. Ms. Ludwig?
Yes.
Mrs. Shockley?
Yes.
Mr. LeBlanc?
Yes.
Ms. Lima?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon, yes. 5 yeas, no nays. The motion passes. I don't see her in the audience. Otherwise, I'd have her come speak. Okay, thank you. Agenda E1, President announcements. We have 12 to 15 board and commission openings. We will have a super interview day on Saturday, May 21st, 2022. We encourage those with terms that are expiring to let us know and be scheduled for an interview. And we also encourage those members of the public who are very interested in being on a board or commission to please apply. The council is committed to an open process, and we interview every single person who applies for a position, even those who are reapplying for a position, because we are very committed, as I said, to an open process. We have openings on the following boards and commissions: Friends of Human Services, the Coventry Housing Authority, the Library Board of Trustees, the Patuxent River Authority, the Planning Board, the Sewer Subcommittee, the Zoning Board of Review, The Conservation Commission, we have 4 members, we need a 5th. And Parks and Recreation Commission, we have 7 members, we need 9. So please, if any of these boards and commissions are of interest to you, please do send a letter of interest or an email of interest to our town clerk, Ms. Albatrano, and attach a resume, and she will schedule you for Super Saturday. We had a Super Saturday 1 year ago in which we interviewed everyone who was applying for a board and commission. It worked very, very well. We were mostly on schedule, so that's all good news. But it allows us to meet and greet many members of the community, and we also take that opportunity to learn more about the boards and commissions and how well they're doing. So it not only is a way for us to meet people in the community, but we also find out about what we can do to even make these boards and commissions even more effective and efficient. So please do consider some of these boards and commissions. Agenda item F1, update and presentation to the council from the Central Coventry Fire District Board, President Cynthia A. Fagan Perry, to discuss current status of the district's corrective action plan submitted to the state of Rhode Island and to address potential coverage issues upon exhaustion of district finances as projected by the end of June 2022. President Fagan Perry was invited by the town council to give us a status report. During her presentation, council members may ask questions, but no questions from the public will be allowed during this presentation. During public comment, we do encourage members of the public to make statements if they wish, but no discussion, as usual, will take place during the public comment section. I will remind members of the public who are present that the council adheres to the rules of procedure, which include the code of conduct by citizens and other visitors. President Fagan Perry, please address the council. Welcome to attend, and you have a couple other a member of your board, and you also have Mrs. Corrigan with you.
Yes, I do.
Would you introduce them, please, to the members of the council and the public?
Gail Corrigan, our treasurer. Where did he go? Carl, where are you? Carl Madison is another board member, and Richard Pacelli is the other board member that's here tonight.
Welcome to the board members. Okay.
Who? Oh, Russ. Russ McGilvery. Sorry, I didn't see him back there.
Thank you.
I knew I saw him earlier, but I didn't see him when I was looking.
I'll take. So President Fagan Perry, we're very happy to have you here to give us this update. So it's your presentation now. Thank you.
Thank you. Right now, we're working on a multi-phase pronged attempt at this. We requested money from the town council at one point, and then we pulled back on that and decided to go after the state opera money instead because they had a bigger pot. So far, we're not getting anywhere with the state. So one of our pieces is to, if we were to get a $3 million amount from the state, would be to put $1 million in a rainy day fund, another $1 million in a capital improvement account, and another $1 million to hire some more men to start off a 4 platoon. Right now, we're under a 3 platoon, which was started by the state when the district was in bankruptcy. We've been raising our budget 4% every year. And last September, we put in an 8.5 increase in our taxes, all of which on that vote was turned down 2-1 by the taxpayers of Central Coventry District. We are now going for a 15.65% increase from the taxpayers of our district, and that will be on an all-day referendum on May 9th. There'll also be another vote taken for another gentleman to be put on our board, and that gentleman's name is Mr. Polano. Those are the only 2 things that are on the all-day referendum and agenda. We will be shortly doing contracts again with the fire department. And I think I gave our attorney a couple of dates to start next week as far as a new contract goes. Other than that, I don't think we have too much more. I mean, we did a corrective action plan. We've submitted our audit. We had a clean bill of health on our audit again. And I believe this is the third or fourth clean audit we've had since coming out of bankruptcy. Other than that, I'm going to let Gail, who's the treasurer, give you some more detailed information.
Thank you. Mrs. Corrigan?
Good evening, and thank you for inviting us. So I've been the treasurer just since I believe somewhere in January. Before that, I was the district manager, and I did take time off to pursue a business venture, which ended up being Ukrainian wine. So it turns out I am the largest importer of Ukrainian wine in the United States. So recently it's been very, very trying in terms of the business. But despite that, we have worked very hard to get our audit done in time and also to put in financial controls in terms of now we've moved to cash flow. So we do weekly cash flow forecasts, and so that we know exactly where we are every week and we can predict when we will run out of cash based on 5-year actual collections. So we go back 5 years, see what the collections were for that week, and we assume, we make an assumption from there. Since I've put together that cash flow forecast, and we update it every Tuesday to make sure that we're running along, it's still holding at the end of June, the last week of June, June 30th. As of today, we have $689,000 in all our accounts. We have 3 accounts, and we run through roughly about $100,000 a week. So in terms of cash, that will run out. And when we run out, unfortunately, because of the timing of when we run out, the next billing is would be due in August 15th. And then, of course, there would be another annual meeting and another tax increase. Hopefully that would be passed. But my model goes out until, I believe, October. And unfortunately, even when you have these things and assuming a 4% tax increase, you do not ever get to a level where you can make consistent payroll. The reason for that is there's 3-pronged reason. In fiscal year, I believe it was, so fiscal year 19, we had $689,000 in our, let's call it cumulative surplus or rainy day fund. And that's pretty much that was about 12% of our 12.5%. We like to be minimum at 10, ideally at 15 in terms of having that cash cushion, because of course there's variations in tax collection and also bills. As of last fiscal year, we had $338,000. So it went down significantly, and we're projecting that this cash will go actually negative, and it will go negative 630, and there'll be no surplus to be able to make payroll. So one week you might get 30,000, and the next week you might get 15, or the next week you might get 100. It goes out, but you will never have enough to be able to pay your bills as they come due. And there are 3 main reasons for this that happened since fiscal year 19. And the first is rescue run. So we do the firefighters go out and they provide EMS services. And over time, I believe it was about 900,000 during when the state had the district. But in fiscal year 17, it was 850,000. So this was revenue that was paid to the district for when the firefighters went out, did a revenue run, and insurance was charged. Insurance would pay. And so this was a significant source. Taxes were always about 80%. And the rescue revenue and some other things like fire marshal fees and some other smaller items made up the difference. Last year, the rescue run revenue was $544,000. So that's about $300,000 over that period of time. And a few reasons, of course, COVID was a major factor. People stopped taking rescues as much. People stopped activity. There was less activity in the ponds or people on the roads. But there was another one that actually had started much before the COVID, and it had started somewhere after fiscal year 17. And that was that the insurance that people had or didn't have. If a resident does not have insurance and they have a rescue trip, we forgive it. We do not go after them. But the types of insurance that people had moved from either they moved to not having insurance or they moved to a lesser type of insurance, either a Medicare or maybe a kind of Obamacare or neighborhood health, which pays on a lot less. So the idea of having these commercial, like a Blue Cross Blue Shield or United Health, a lot of people moved from those types of insurances, which kind of reflective of what was happening to people in the community. You just didn't you didn't have jobs or you aged or whatever it was, but that was happening much before, compounded with COVID. And when you think about 300,000, that itself is an 8% increase in taxes. So that was a huge, and it's compounded every year. So that was a huge loss of revenue for the district. The second thing was insurance. So if you think that last year, even in fiscal year 21, we had our insurance was $43,000. And that was the insurance for general liability, for the property insurance, for the trucks, all this kind of thing. It was $43,000. It's now this year, 208. And the reason for that is there was some unfortunate incidents with a child who had we had some accidents, but also a child had kind of taken one of our rescues across the road. You might have remembered it. And that actually created a large liability because there was a motorcyclist involved in that accident. So that was primarily the big one. So that insurance number was a little bit unexpected. We did our best to try to mediate it. We actually increased our deductibles, did all sorts of things, but we actually ended up with $208,000. We are going out for insurance bid again this year. But again, I think it's going to be at that level for some time until you have to go 3 years out and then they'll reassess. So insurance is another thing. And if you think about that's $165,000, that's another 4% tax increase. Again, just these are the things that happened. And of course, the third one is the overtime bill. And so just to recall that there's a structural, that we are in a 3-platoon system. And I believe at this point in time, we're pretty much the only, in terms of career firefighter department that's on such a platoon. This platoon structure was put in by the state, and it was part of their structural change for the bankruptcy. There's a law that was passed, and what this law did was that it said you can be on a 3-platoon system, but you're going to pay as if you're on a 4-platoon system. So the incentive is to bring it back to a 4-platoon system. And to get out of what we are trying to do today is that we need to move to a 4-platoon system. We just need to, because the law, the overtime increase is over 300,000, so another 8% of taxes. And this overtime, if you move to a 4-platoon system, then this overtime will go away. And so typically I would be budgeting between 375 and 425 for overtime. This year I budgeted 725. And as of today, when I looked at how we're trending, I'm looking at a $719,000 overtime at the end of the year. So it's tracking exactly where I thought it would be. So these three factors, one is a reduction in revenue and two are increases in expenses. And when you add them all together, plus when the state did had the contract, the 5-year contract to get out of when they were in bankruptcy and put this contract in, they cut not only did they move to 3 platoon at 56 hours, they actually cut salaries and cut benefits. So it's a very, very, very skinny contract. Our firefighters are in some of the lowest paid in the state. So we have been trying to give as much as possible to raise them to the level where they should be. And so, for instance, at the end of this year, on the last day of the year, there'll be a 3% increase. But realize in the last 2 years, they have not had any increase. So 3% is really 1%. So it's really not that much. So when you look at that 3% increase, well, that's another 4%. So as you can see, you would have to raise taxes to such an extent to move to a 4-platoon system and also to move to a 4-platoon system safely. You can't just roll your wand and say, okay, we're going to have a 4-platoon system. It takes time. I predict that in order to have 4 platoons, a full-time fire marshal, and a full-time chief, in the 4 platoons with 10 members, we have 3 platoons with 10 members. So I'm looking at between 13 and 15 new hires. And right now we are 2 people down. So we have 29 people on staff. So when you think about that, 13 to 15, you're talking about almost, it's a significant number of people. We do have fire academies that train people very, very well. But of course, there's some turnover. Obviously, not everybody makes it through the academy. So you're really going to need maybe 17 or 18 people, and you're not going to get them all in one day. You can't just say, okay, we want 17, 18 firefighters, and they're all going to be lined up to come to Coventry. As much as it's definitely a great town, and it's a great department. So when you look at what you have to do to go through,
excuse me, there's some people talking in the back, and don't want to interrupt your conversation or flow. So, please continue.
So you're looking at 2 to 3 years to get to this state of having a 4-platoon system, full-time fire marshal, full-time chief. So when you're doing that for those 3 years, again, a lot of things are going up. You've got your fuel as everybody, it goes up for everybody. There has to be increases. So this plan has to be really a 3-year plan, and the taxes do need to increase, because if we are given the money and we go through the money, you can't be in the same position. You can't have kind of burnt through 3 million and have nothing to show for it. So one of the things that's really important part of the plan is that there has to be continual tax increases. And we did have fiscal year 19, 20, and 21, we were at 4%. And at 4%, we were able to handle all these things. Of course, in fiscal year 22, because even in 21, we knew we needed to go up. We were probably going to be doing 6 or 7%, but because of where we were in COVID and the law, we could only do 4. So, but we do need to get the taxpayer to understand that they have to pay more. But at the same time, given that the situation, besides the insurance, is caused by COVID or is covered by ARPA regulations. So ARPA regulations, in terms of how you can use the funds, and I think you've all had instruction on this and what you can use the funds on. One is, probably the biggest one is revenue replacement from revenue that was lost during COVID. And you can go 2 years back and 3 years forward. And so we've done that calculation. And the other one actually is overtime or premium pay, what's called premium pay for public safety. It's very clear in the opera. And so when you look at, we can actually do the overtime expenses for the next 2 years back and 3 years forward. And so that's how we kind of came up with the 3 million. So again, as President Fagan said, the plan is 1 million is in the rainy day fund. And this allows us to hire the people to do the increases, to negotiate in good faith with the firefighters, to give them, some there's a future here. And that their paychecks are coming every week. The 1 million in capital funds so that we can, obviously the equipment, you see it all the time as residents. I mean, I see it all the time, no matter where they're always working. It's a very, very, very big and busy department. So the equipment does these roads, as we talked about, not probably the greatest. And so the equipment does need to be replenished over time. And then, of course, the $1 million to hire these new firefighters and to outfit them with the turnout gear, all their gear, all these things, train them, and to also do promotions because people need to be promoted. You can't just have a bunch of, one of the biggest problems, we do have a very, very, very young department. So we have about 7 out of the 27 have less than a year experience. And that's just, it's a concern. And the chief has discussed these concerns and the board knows about these concerns. So the reason for this 3-year plan and why it doesn't happen overnight is because it is going to take about 3 years and it's going to be kind of phases in terms to get to that 40, it'll end up being 43 people in the fire. So if anyone has any questions.
Okay, I will ask any members of the council if they have any questions. Ms. Ludwig?
Thank you, Ms. Corrigan. I had just a couple of questions. So for the vote that Ms. Fagan-Perry had mentioned before for May 9th, this is my understanding correct? That's just a supplemental tax to get through to September. That has nothing to do with ARPA. That's strictly operating costs through September.
Yes, and I just want to talk about that for 1 second. It is 15.65 because that would be it probably translate into about, if we did a 85% collection rate, it translates into 569,000, which would get us, as you mentioned, it would get us to September. But one of the problems with the supplemental tax, the town did, the fire district did have one in the past. I believe in 2014 during the bankruptcy, I think the legislature actually imposed one through a legislative bill, and it was about 33%. It took 4 years to collect that 33% tax increase. And the reason is when you do a supplemental, there was a supplemental in city of Central Falls too, when they had a bankruptcy. And the problem with supplementals is that first, they kind of people are just confused. They don't, if they're not educated about the supplemental, they'll get this bill in the mail. By the way, it's going to take a little time to get that bill in the mail. So even if May 9th happens and they vote, we probably won't get the bills out until end of May. People might be confused. And a lot of times they say, well, what is this? I already paid my fire tax. So it is going to be a lot of kind of education of people in terms of paying the bills. And then a lot of people have bills that go to their mortgage companies and their taxes are actually escrowed. And that's a whole nother thing. So it's not like, even if they do, and this is even if it's proved and we send out the supplemental bills, it will vary. There will be some weeks where we will not be able to make payroll because not everybody's writing a check for that supplemental amount that next day. It just doesn't work that way. And like I said, we did use an 85% collection rate.
Okay. So I think you said this in a couple different ways. So I'm hoping to just summarize. So the $3 million, that's the ARPA request. That does not have to do with the operating budget. That has to do with COVID replacement, possibly new firefighters, and future possible capital expenditures, right? That's not, so even if, let me ask it as a question because now I'm not sure. So even if the 3 million is granted from the state, from the ARPA request, there's still an operating ask to make sure we get through the year?
No, if the 3 million is that operating ask is part of that million.
It is part. Okay.
So that operating ask, and that's why you have the million that's in the rainy day fund. And because that's the cash flow. So in other words, you have $1 million in the bank. So that's why you can go and hire the people. You can go and you can make payroll. You can go, you can negotiate with the union. You have to make sure, of course, that you're not, you have to look at the overtime. But if the state saw fit to use the opera money for public safety in the town of Coventry under the regulations, which allows and actually encourages ARPA for public safety. That's one of the reasons the money is. There were other monies, COVID monies, pots of monies, but this pot of money was meant for public safety, for revenue replacement, for such things as rescue, and for what was called premium pay for fire and police. So it can be used for both. And you can go 2 years back and 3 years forward to, I have to use it by December 31st, 2025. So if we were to get this $3 million, this is the plan that we would enact. We would immediately, starting 9/1, probably move to a 4-platoon system. 9/1 is our beginning of our fiscal year. Yeah. So that budget would include a 4% tax increase. You still have to catch up. You can't just use this money because it will run out at some day. So your plan has to take into account tax increases, and it has to take into account controlled spending and expenditures to make sure that at the end of it, you have a structural so, it goes along, it's sustainable. So you have to change the structure of Central Coventry Fire District from a 3-platoon system to a 4-platoon system. You're going to have to add firefighters. You're going to add a full-time fire marshal. You're going to make Central Coventry and the citizens of Coventry in a whole, because as of this point, we do a lot of mutual aid with a lot of our surrounding fire districts. So you're going to make Coventry as a whole more safe for public safety. And I personally cannot think of a better use of $3 million for the opera funds, which is what it was meant for. And if you think about it, I like to think about it like this. The state got $1.1 billion. That's like getting $101, and we're asking for 3 cents. When you put it into that kind of, because everybody's like, oh, $3 million, it's a lot of money. But when you really think about it, we're asking for 3 cents. You got $101, and all we need is 3 cents. And we've got this plan to make Central Coventry and Coventry as a whole safer, to invest in firefighters, to invest in a 4-platoon structure, a full-time fire marshal, full-time chief, things that are really needed. We're bigger than the town of East Greenwich. We're bigger than West Warwick in terms of size, in terms of run volume. We're a very, very, very busy department. This is not sleepy, that people are just sleeping. They aren't. They're hard at work. And as I say, they're not even, if they even meet average, I would say they're probably below average in terms of wages. So you need to attract people to come here.
So just in terms of a couple of things that I've heard in the past, I don't know if this question is for you, Ms. Corrigan, or maybe for Ms. Fagan-Perry, but I had previously heard of things like safer grants and things like that in the past, but I wasn't totally clear on why CCFD was not applying for them, or if you were, maybe I misunderstood.
Yeah, so safer grants, they're great, but the thing is, you can't guarantee that you'll get it. It's like you're putting in an application. They're completely throughout the country. So there might be at any one time, and it's a federal grant program, so they're very complicated. If they have to be budgeted for, you don't get in fact, it might take a couple years you're always going back. I don't know if you know anything about federal grants, but they're very complicated. But the biggest thing you need to know is that it's great if you get it. It's a little bit like winning the lottery, though, because you're not guaranteed for it. And there are certain things that where we would fit in the safer grant, we would have to lay off a bunch of people. And then the timing of it, we wouldn't know until we would get one, if we were to get one, until October. So obviously way too late for anything to happen. And they were on hold for quite some time. So it's not like they come up every year at the same time. In fact, it's all about the federal government budget, and it follows along from there, usually a year or two in arrears. So, and it's not to say that we wouldn't try to get one in the future. That might be a strategy, but when you're going off a fiscal cliff, when I say we run out of money at the end of June, I mean, there is no money. Nobody gets paid. And if you get $30,000 the next week, and what do? Hire back two guys. It's going to be catastrophic. And like I say, we're talking about 3 cents here. So, I hope that answers it.
Okay. I did have,
You have other people.
oh, sorry. I'll cede the floor for
Why
a
don't
few
you hold the
questions.
floor for a few minutes? Other members of the council, Mr. LeBlanc.
Thank you for the presentation tonight. So if I'm hearing you correctly, even if the town council hypothetically gave you the 3 million, if the taxpayers don't approve some type of increase, we're going to be back here in like a year and a half.
You mean if the state gave you?
No, well,
Town council gave you.
I'm just hypothetically throwing out, we have ARPA funds too. If we were to give you the 3 million, like hypothetically, okay, if the taxpayers don't approve an increase this year, then we're going to be back here talking about the same stuff about a year and a half to 2 years from now, because you're going to run out of money again.
No, that 3 million takes us like I said, it will take us 2 or 3 years. Plus you have 3 million is for us a lot of money. You have to think about our annual amount that we get for taxes is about 4.2 million. Okay, we're working on a budget of about 5.2. So typically before, the rest of it came from rescue recoveries and that kind of thing, which is now you can see why that's happening. So if you have $3 million and you use it correctly, what we're talking about, and the interesting thing is that since 2016, when the board took over from the state, there's only been one budget that the taxpayers did not vote, and that was the 8.5 last year. So we had 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and those last 3 years being 4% increases, they voted for. And I think 4% is a very reasonable amount. People need to know that taxes do go up. I mean, we're in an inflationary time, and 4% is very reasonable. Like, people do need increases, fuel increases, these things happen. The thing with the $3 million, whether it came from, could come from Bill Gates, I don't really care. What that, again, allows is that million to handle the fluctuations, the capital amount to handle when the trucks are going, but really to be able to hire those kids. But the 4% also is paying for things like increases, like things that would normally happen. The 3 million pays for the things that don't normally happen, and moving to that structural system. So it is incumbent on taxpayers to pay at least 4%. And in the past, they've proven that that's a reasonable amount that they're willing to pay. When you get up to 8.5, well, it wasn't very reasonable. When you get to 15.65, we'll see in May 9th. And what we really would need to do this, if we were going to do it without a 3 million, would be over a 65% tax increase. So, and that's obviously not going to be reasonable for any taxpayer. So this, again, if if I were here asking for money from like, okay, yeah, I want to come out of the citizens of Burrville or Warwick or somewhere else, but this is ARPA money that was meant exactly for public safety. And for these things, if you read the regulations, it can't be any clearer that this is the purpose of this money. And we're asking for 3 cents to be able to change structurally to a safer public safety system. And, I think it's reasonable, but then that's my opinion. And really it's the opinion of the legislature, the governor, and frankly, of the taxpayers.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, my concern was the 13 to 15 hires, the change in the revenue because of what you were saying earlier, the lost revenue. And if you didn't have that tax increase, I didn't know how much longer you would be able to survive. But it sounds like, based on what you just said, you would be able to survive for quite some time. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, other questions? Mrs. Shockley?
Just because this question has been asked, this year, if I recall, you guys chose to pay off your fire trucks.
No, that's not correct.
Did you not pay off the fire trucks?
Not this year.
What year did you do that?
2000 and I believe 18 or 19. So a bit, and we only had one. It was leased at a very high percentage because we were in bankruptcy. I believe it was 12%.
Right.
So we were paying, I think it was like 78,000. It wasn't a good deal.
What was the total payoff?
It was an engine. I believe the original engine was maybe, I'd have to look at it. It's in the financial reports on our website. Sure. But you can see where it's been paid off. And what we did is we had an extra, we had 3 stations that were sold, and we sold the station and paid it off so we did one asset to move it to another asset. We paid it off with the proceeds from a sale of an asset.
Do you have any recollection of what it was? Because when did you guys get into, get the knowledge that you were going to have to move to this 4 platoon?
Well, in 2019, I believe so this was before 2019, we didn't have that knowledge. And obviously in 2018, 17, things were actually very, very good. We had it was a different world back then. Nobody could predict that COVID would happen. Nobody would predict that our insurance would go up so high. So obviously, if you knew, it's always a thing like, oh yeah, I do it all the time myself personally. Oh, if I had only known, I would have invested in this or done that, but you can't really go back. We did, again, it's a board and it's not, so the board decided, it's a policy decision, and the decision was to sell an asset and to remain debt free. And I do remember the terms of that particular financing agreement were quite egregious, even at that time, because again, we do have the pallor of a former bankruptcy on us. Nobody would give us a loan. And of course, somebody will give you a loan, but they're going to give it to you at 12% when the prevailing rate is, at that time, it was like 5 or 6. And when you look at how much we were paying, as you know, you pay the interest first. And so I think the first year we ended up paying $67,000.
No whispering in the group so we can concentrate on the speaker. Thank you.
Yeah. So we paid, $60,000, and it was just thought that by the board that it would be better use of assets to pay off that loan.
Okay. No, I appreciate that explanation, the timing of those 2 things. So this year we happen to have ARPA money, and I don't know if the state will give it to you or not, but you would have run into the same situation without the ARPA money, it seems.
So what we have, the rescue, again, we would have had the COVID problems with the rescue run, and we would have had the insurance issue, agreed. We wouldn't have had the overtime issue. So that was something that was done in 2019 by the state again.
No, not without COVID. I apologize. If there were no ARPA funds, if you don't get them, if you don't get the ARPA funds.
Right. So that's where we are. So we're going to run out of money on 6/30. Yeah.
So I guess what I'm saying is if the state says no,
that's correct,
and the town doesn't give you the money. I don't think any of us think that this fire department should not survive. We want a central Coventry fire district. It's the safety of our town. But what happens if neither entity gives you $3 million?
We run out of
You
money
just
on
don't
6:30.
exist anymore as a fire department?
Well, then it's up to the board of what they do. Because like I said, when we run out of money at the end, that means that we can't make we can't pay payroll. We can't pay the lights. We can't think about all the things that you do as a town. It's just a microcosm of the town. But we still will be collecting taxes if people still send us money. So it's what to do with that money that we have. And that's a whole nother discussion and I think that's one that we will have, but there's not much. If you take a look it's on our website, and you take a look at the corrective action plan, and you take a look at the cash flow forecast going out to the end of October, there is money coming in, but it's not enough to sustain 2 stations fully manned. It's not enough to sustain that model of what we're doing right now. So are there decisions to close a station? Are there decisions to maybe make payments to other municipalities to assist? These are questions that are policy questions, and I'm just the treasurer, so I can give you numbers, but I can't tell you what to do or what should happen. That's a policy decision.
And I guess I'm just wondering also, you don't seem to be asking for our ARPA funds. You're still asking for the states, just from how you're speaking. So I guess I just wonder what your ask is tonight, or if you're just informing.
We've been invited.
Which is great. I appreciate it.
Yes, and I appreciate being able to explain. And again, the reason why we're not asking, I think President Fagan Perry said it very eloquently, is, we're asking for 3 cents for somebody who has $100 versus $3 of somebody who has 10, or actually you don't even have 10 yet. So we're asking for everything you have. And it just seemed, and also if one thing, when I was looking at the ARPA monies and the regulations, there was you had received an earlier fund of COVID funds, the town had, and it went for the police. And if you had a fire department, it would have gone to your fire department, but you don't have a fire department. And it's just kind of this little loophole in the law that says that we're a fire district. So when you think that the town, that ARPA money that you have is for your town, because you really missed out, or the town, when you look at a town view, like just don't think about fire districts, or just think about the town of Coventry. If you had a fire department, you would have, in that first COVID allocation, you would have received monies, just like you did for the police department. You have a police department. So it really behooves the state, because the town only has, you will get, I guess, to 10.3 million, but you have a lot of needs. And really, the fire districts belong under the state ARPA, because that's where they belong according to the regulations. And you can say you're going to do this and that with the money, but read the regulations, and it's so clear that the state, it really belongs to the state, and that the town and your ARPA monies are just like any other city or town that has a fire department and a police department. And the town of Coventry should not be penalized because it has fire districts at this point for ARPA monies. And that's why when we really looked at it, we decided to pull back from the town, and because it does belong with state. And it is, these are monies that are meant for fire districts. They truly are.
I guess my fear is that we have multiple fire districts in Coventry, and there's one that is possibly going to fail. And that isn't something that's safe or beneficial to any resident of Coventry. So possibly we need to come up with a different plan overall for our fire district, so that this one, this is the second time in 8 years that this one is in real fear of failing. And I think that is an issue. As a resident of Central Coventry, it's an issue for me, and an issue for many of my residents.
And I totally agree with that. And one of the things, we are the biggest. So we do most of the runs, a far majority of the runs in the town. And so, but any time that, if you want to talk about future, if you're going to do future consolidations or even a town department, if the biggest doing 80% of all the work, if that isn't healthy, you are doomed to fail. So what this really, my 3-year plan is, it's a plan to get to a modern, maybe I would say a more modern fire department or fire services in the town, but you can't get there from where we are today without going for Central Coventry itself to go through a 4-platoon system, to be healthy, to have the 42 members or 43 members. And then now you can start talking about other things. But if you're under duress,
Gentlemen, please.
you're not gonna make it, and it will be a failure, and it'll be even worse and I respect your views in terms of it isn't safe for everybody, but you have to come up with a plan to make it safe. And this is the first step.
President Dixon.
Just a moment. Mrs. Lima has been waiting to speak.
Can I just make one very quick statement?
What is it?
I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew we had invited President Fagan Perry and Ms. Corrigan tonight to share information. So there is no ask on the table. I'm sorry if we didn't set that expectation before. This is just meant to be more of a conversation. We're not here to solve anything tonight. This is more of us just being able to ask questions and hear from them directly. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. We're doing so.
That was the setup. Thank you. Mrs. Lima.
Thank you. So just from my understanding, because, you hear information from all different places. So does the order of events of, say, the 15% and change supplemental is approved, you get the 3 million from the state, and then a 4% passes in your annual meeting this fall, and you continue to get the 4%. From what I understand, you're also burdened by having to constantly staff Western and also having to do mutual aid for Coventry. So does that 4-platoon system and the infusion of cash I just talked about solve that burden?
What I think it does is that when you're adding 12, 13 new firefighters into the mix and you move to the 4-platoon system, firefighters aren't working as much. They're more fresh. Coventry or Anthony themselves are looking to hire more firefighters. In their last contract, they have a commitment to add personnel. So anytime you're adding personnel, you're going to be adding, especially where we are right now, which is extremely, extremely skinny, you're going to be adding safety. So, but the order of events, I can only tell you for certainty, end of June. That's all I can tell you. Yep. And May 9th, I myself, I'm not a taxpayer here, so it's not up to me. It's up to people who are probably some of you, and then some people in this room, but not everybody in this room. But it's up to them. And in terms of the state, again, not up to me.
I guess my larger question was just all things happen according to plan. Does that address the alleged burden that the mutual aid to Western and Anthony pose for you?
It will over time, but again, it's going to take time to train, to hire and train. And so that burden is going to continue until those people are hired, until they're trained, until the promotions are made. You need time. And it is quite a burden. If you look at the runs and you look at how busy they are, again, and each fire district has a different setup. But if you want to go forward into the future, you have to start with a plan to create a very healthy Central Coventry Fire District. And that's what the 3 million does.
One last question. I think it's been made clear that the fire districts are all very interdependent, and even Central is kind of the hub. Has an effort been made to meet with the heads of the families, so to speak, about working together to resolve the public safety issue?
I'll turn that over to President Fagan, because that wouldn't involve me.
Okay.
Any other questions? Or
we may call you back again.
One follow-up question from Ms. Corrigan.
Is it for whom?
For Gail. Yeah, Mr. Corrigan.
Okay, Mrs. Corrigan, question for Mr. LeBlanc.
Have you guys had discussions about what happens subsequent to June if things don't go the way that you want them to? Like, just curious, if I was a taxpayer in that district and it's now July 15th and something happens, you guys run out of money, who is going to take that call? And if you don't have the funds to pay for mutual aid, is there a requirement for other districts to take that call?
That question is a very good question. And that's for the chief who does operations. Is Chief Brown here tonight? Yes. So the chief can address
Okay.
that.
I would just,
Right now,
okay.
we'll pass on that one. Thank you. Okay,
Any more
I
for
just
me?
have a couple other questions for you, and some of these
So
questions.
will my question that I asked be answered or after Ms. Corrigan's done or?
I'm sorry.
Did you want to answer? Ms. Link?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, my question was just about if the districts had made an effort to meet at all to work towards an end to this issue.
No, we have not.
Is there any
At this
plan
point.
to?
I'm open to any suggestions any of the other departments have, but right now they haven't asked. We haven't asked them. We're under a mutual aid pact.
Yeah.
So if we can't respond, Anthony will have to respond. Western Coventry may have to respond, as well as Hopkins Hill.
Oh, so are you saying?
There is a mutual pact between all of our departments. But we haven't specifically said, we're going to need you at a certain date. No, we haven't. But as we give mutual aid to them, they have to give mutual aid to us. And that's been going on for decades.
Okay, so your board hasn't reached out to the others to say we could, let's talk about how we can fix this now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not at the moment.
President Dixon,
Yes,
why can't we talk about my question? I just,
I'm sorry. Would you repeat your question, please?
I was curious if a taxpayer was to call subsequent to June 30th. It's kind of like the budget, the regular budget that we have. We're asking for 4%. If the taxpayers don't approve it, we let the taxpayer know what happens if they don't approve that 4%. So I just don't know. I feel like it's a valid question.
Okay, that is a valid question, and I believe Ms. Corrigan said that she didn't know the answer to that question.
She said Chief Brown did.
In terms of operation.
Well, we didn't want to. Yep.
You want me to answer?
Very quickly, yes,
I would,
please.
yes, please.
Yeah,
Very
so
quickly.
there is no obligation on the other fire districts to respond. Those taxpayers in them districts are paying for those trucks to be there. Mutual aid is reciprocal. So if there's no central Coventry, my trucks from Hopkins Hill can't spend all their time in another district that ain't willing to provide the protection. So quite honestly, I don't believe there'll be any response from the other fire districts.
Okay.
It's got to be reciprocal.
Thank you. And in answer to a comment that was made, I know that Mr. Bosque, who's the chairperson of the board for Western Coventry, has extended out an invitation to each of the other boards to presidents to meet with him to discuss the situation. And if you have not received an invitation, then I will remind him that perhaps he has not sent it out to everyone, but he said that he was going to send out an invitation to each of the boards, the chairperson of the board and the vice chairperson of the board, so you wouldn't run into OMA law violations. And so that way you could discuss some of these issues that are common to all of you. But I just have a couple of questions. I don't know if this is Mrs. Corrigan or Ms. Corrigan or President Fagan Perry. Could you come up here, please? I'm curious to know, what has the board done to try to lobby in the state to get those opera funds from the state? Because that's your plan A, so to speak. So what has been done, and what is the status of that request at this moment in time?
At this moment in time, we do not have an answer from the state. We have been meeting monthly with them. And all we get is talk to the town. They don't want to hear from us.
Is that?
But yet we have given them a plan after plan, our audits. We have given them everything that they have requested, and they still keep telling us, go to the town. It's the town's responsibility.
Okay.
I don't feel it is. I feel it's more on the states because we're chartered through the state.
Mm-hmm. And if you did receive opera funds from the state, how long would that sustain you?
I believe that's a question for Gail.
So again, I'm putting together. So again, I'm putting together, one of the things that the state has asked for is, okay, if we do give you the 3 million, you have to have a plan. And that's a very reasonable ask. So I am working on that plan. I gave you some thoughts about it tonight. And again, it's really about the timing of hiring. You just can't hire that many people, and training them and promoting the people that we have. And I expect to take between 2 and 3 years. In terms of money running out, if you get 3 million, the idea of this whole thing is it's supposed to be sustainable, because that's why you have the 4% tax increases. That's why you have the 3 million. So you don't have to worry if your truck breaks down, you don't have to worry about, you can replace it during this time. So I would expect to be fully sustainable between 3 and 5 years. But the plan I'm doing is 3 years. I will go out 5 years to make sure that it is sustainable, because if it's not sustainable, that then it's failed. It's not a plan if it's not sustainable. That's how I feel.
So it sounds like it may not be sustainable because part of your 3-pronged plan is that you're able to hire more personnel, and that's going to take time, as you said, correct?
That is, but that's not part of the why it wouldn't be sustainable. In fact, so in one hand, it's a double-edged sword that we have such a young department. The younger firefighters, obviously, they don't make as much, and it takes time for them to go up. At the same time, they're not as experienced. So it's going to be a difficult transition time. But if I can move forward 3 years, I think you would see a 4-platoon system, full-time fire marshal, full-time chief. You'd find a deputy chief or a division chief, and you'd find 40 highly trained professional firefighters.
So if you did get funding from the state and you got the supplemental tax increase, then going forward, I believe you said you would only need a 4% increase each year. Is that what you said?
Yes.
But that relies on you getting this supplemental tax?
Not necessarily. When I do my projections, I'm assuming because it's 15.65% and because we do have a lot of residents who maybe live in modular homes or just in, we don't have, obviously the inflation, it affects everybody. So it's not to ask for 15.65, it might pass and it might not. I can't say whether it will or not. All I know is that 4%, because we have historic data that says 4% passes. And so when I do I'm an accountant, I'm very conservative. So when I do my plan, it's 4%, because I know that historically 4% is reasonable and it does pass.
So if you don't get funding from the state, the supplemental tax will only carry you through September versus June. Is that correct?
The supplemental tax, if it gets passed and we don't get money from the state, it'll be very, very difficult because, again, people do not pay supplemental taxes right away. So even if we get the supplemental tax, there will be weeks where we will not be able to make payroll. It will just happen that way because not everybody is paying immediately. And when you have your tax bill, as you yourselves know, there's a certain part of the population that pays immediately. They get a bill and they just pay it, the whole thing. And then there's some people that pay quarterly right on time. And then there's some people who you kind of have to chase after or do a tax sale for. And for us, when we did our first tax sale in 2017, 2018, we did both of them. We did them here. And you couldn't even stand because that's how many properties that we hadn't done a tax sale in so long. So we don't really want to get there. So the supplemental is a little bit fraught with, it's kind of like, be careful what you wish for. It's like, okay, it passes, but it's going to actually collect that money is going to be a little bit of a challenge.
So if you don't get the opera money from the state, and you don't get the supplemental, which you said is going to have some problems in even collecting that money, which might carry you through to September, it sounds like the board needs to be coming up with Plan C almost immediately. And what I hear is that there really is no Plan C and not a thorough discussion about what the alternatives are at this point in time. But yet June is only a couple of months away. So what is the plan to start doing something to figuring out what's going to happen next if Plan A from the state and the supplemental tax does not work?
Again, we've been so focused on, we gave the state everything they wanted. It's a lot of work. And now putting together the plan that the state wants. See the plan, we've done that. And to your point, the next step would be if the state's not going to, if they see our plan and they don't agree with it, or they just don't want to fund it for whatever reason, then you have to go with Plan B. And we're looking to what happens obviously on May 9th. And that's just not even a month away. So time's moving very quickly, as you can imagine. And again, the one thing I can be certain, and the only thing I can be certain of, is 6:30, and that doesn't change no matter what happens unless we get an infusion from the state. And so you're asking what happens after 6:30 if we don't get an infusion from the state. And frankly, I would say that the infusion from the state is the only thing that gives us that cushion so that we can make sure, because we can't even hire anybody if we can't make payroll. So if you don't get that cushion from the state, then you just don't have, you're at the whim of a taxpayer writing a check. And I can't predict how many are going to decide to write a check that day or the next day or a week. So really it's Plan A. And if it's not Plan A, whatever it is, the other thing I can guarantee you is it's going to be messy. There's no like kind of magic solution, because if there was, we would have already done it. And anything you're talking about, you have to think about it practically. It takes time. I mean, these are, even just to move to a 4-platoon system is going to take between 2 and 3 years, depending on how fast you can hire people and train people and promote people. Imagine that. So you're talking about doing something different. That's going to take time. So I can guarantee you 6:30, and I can guarantee you if we don't get the money from the state, it's going to be a mess.
Okay. Are there any final questions by members of the council? President Fagan Perry or Ms. Corrigan? Okay, thank you very much. During public comment, members of the public are welcome to come forward during public comments. Okay, our next agenda item is F2, update on selection of a consultant for an RFP wastewater facility plan proposal. We have had 2 proposals submitted to us.
Public comment now on that?
No, thank you. Public comment will be on our agenda in just a few minutes. We have another couple of agenda items. Update on selection of a consultant for an RFP wastewater facility plan proposal. This is reference pages 7 through 137. Any comments, general comments, as you look through these proposals? Mrs. Lima.
I just had a question on page 8 of our packet, page 2, I guess, of the Fuss and O'Neill. So is this proposal no longer in effect? Because it looks like we're past. I mean, I don't know how formal that is, or.
Yes, I noted that also was for 60 days.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we have passed that. We just received it. Many times these proposals can be extended, but you are right in saying that it was only for 60 days, and that is correct. Any other comments?
Yes. I just wanted to comment, particularly in the Fuss and O'Neill plan, some language that I like to see. There was a lot of mention and persistent mention of maximizing funding sources and creative funding opportunities to decrease the burden on taxpayers, which I appreciated. I also appreciated seeing phrases like public sewer alternatives without bias, and recognizing that not every area is meant or should try for a sewer. And they were more about doing projects well and where they needed to be instead of just forcing them everywhere. Those are some of the call outs that I had highlighted and appreciated. And I like also there was a big focus, not that it wasn't in Weston and Sampson's as well, but on public engagement, and very detailed about how they collect that feedback, and how seriously they take that into account, and for their selection in evaluating area for sewers. So those are just some of my comments.
Excellent.
The only other thing too was, should we have seen proposed costs, or does that come after a selection is made? How does that work? I forget.
Well, when I read it, the proposal did not ask for costs. And so we are at a disadvantage now because one proposal specified that the estimate was 601 hours, but the addendum, which would include the rates, was not included in our package. And then the other proposal did not have any indication of number of estimated hours, nor did it have any indication of the rates, nor did it have any indication of the total cost.
Yeah.
So we're not prepared really to
make a decision.
We can't make a decision this evening. We are missing a lot of information, which we would need to make a responsible decision. So I'm going to suggest that we table this discussion and that we invite someone from each of these companies to come to speak to us, to give us more details so that we would be able to better understand the proposals and to also have many of our questions answered, because we don't really have enough to make a serious decision on this right now.
I'll second that.
Thank you. So I have a motion to table by Mr. LeBlanc. May I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Ms. Ludwig?
Yes.
Mrs. Shockley?
Yes.
Mr. LeBlanc?
Yes.
Mrs. Lima?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon, yes. 5 yeas, no nays. The motion to table has passed. I will inform our town manager, Mr. Marchand, that we would like to invite to a meeting as soon as possible, representatives from each of these companies to be able to answer specific questions by members of the council and to also get more information about the proposal itself. Okay. We are now at Agenda I, public comment. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand, be recognized, and come to the podium. And if you're on Zoom, please raise your hand in the chat and the IT administrator will let you in. Is there anyone who would like to speak? Sir, you may come forward. Please state your name and address, please. You will have 2 minutes to speak. And after everyone speaks, if there's time permits, you'll be able to come back to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Joseph Andrioli. I'm the president of the Rhode Island State Association of Firefighters. I just want to be as brief as I can because 2 minutes isn't enough time. But I negotiated every contract here for the past 10 years on behalf of the firefighters. I was here during the bankruptcy. I sat down with the bankruptcy people. We worked out an agreement. We cut staffing by 40%. We cut our wages, healthcare, everything. And we had a plan. And that plan wasn't followed by this district. And when I say that, I mean that they reduced the budget. They did not properly tax because they were taxing on a lower budget that wasn't feasible. That was structurally a deficit. We talk about the overtime bill, which the overtime, the 42-hour work week had nothing to do with this. This district had 3 years to get in line with that. There were 3 communities. I know because I negotiated them. There were 3 communities, Tiverton, North Kingston, and here that knew for 3 years to transition over to a 4-platoon system if they wanted. The only community that did not want to do that was this community, Central Coventry. We signed a contract a year and a half ago, approximately, with this district. The negotiators were Mr. DiAgostino and Ms. Corrigan and me. I was there. We implored them, let's help get a safer grant. You could get 10, 12, 15 people free of charge for a 3-year period. They refused. I could sit here for hours on top of hours to give you the whole story of what really is the root cause of this. Look at the administrative costs in this fire district. They are so far afield. There are departments that are 3 and 4 times the size of Central that pay less in attorney's fees and less administrative costs than Central Coventry. There's your problem. It's not the men on those fire trucks or the fire chief. They're doing the best they can with Band-Aids and gum to protect this town. And they do a great job. And we're concerned on June 30th because I don't believe much of what I heard, unfortunately. And I say that respectfully from the district, but I do believe that they're running out of money. And I think that they're running out of money purposely. Now, I can't prove that to you in 2 minutes, but if you invite me back or get a workshop where we can come in with our people, we would show you stuff that would make you say, oh my God, in plain English. That's the problem here. And in June 30th, what happens is now we're forced to move into court because we have a contract that they have to fulfill until the end of August. We're already in bargaining and we'll probably be going to interest arbitration again if we can't. The litigation and the administrative costs, take a look at that. It's not the pays. They talk about paying off debt. They paid off debt that no municipality would pay off. They paid off the rescue, the fire engine. They paid off things. And we asked them, why are you paying these things? Why wouldn't you just pay it like a mortgage? How many of you go home and take your money out of your savings to pay off your mortgage?
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'd love to come back if there's enough time because I have so much to enlighten the council of the problem.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Are there any other members of the public who would like?
Give him my 2 minutes. Go ahead.
No, excuse me. Is there anyone else who would like to come to the podium to speak? Yes, Mr. Guthrie. Your name and address, please.
Thank you, Scott Guthrie, 31 Maplewood Drive, Coventry. So most of you know that I was a rep when this thing started happening years ago. I'm not going to charge you $150 an hour to be here like Mrs. Corrigan just did. I hope you indulge and let me explain a couple of things to you. This is about human life. And for the life of me, I cannot understand why this district continues to run itself into the ground. I know it's done by one person and it's not going to stop. When I was in the General Assembly, whenever I spoke, I said, you know, I've done my homework on this, and leadership used to cringe because they knew that I did my homework. So if this district fails, and I want you to indulge me, it's going to go to Judge Stern. How's he going to handle this? He's not very happy after the last debacle. He will have no problem assessing everyone in that district when they liquidate, when it shuts down. Think about that. I think each and every one of you has a connection with Central Coventry, either as a taxpayer, you, I know. I think you are. I'm not sure about Jamie. But this is about saving lives in Coventry. I put this on my agenda as the charter chairperson to let people know, that there is a safety valve that can fix this. And the safety valve is a law, Section 260, Article 3, Fire Department, that was passed in 1949. It is a state law that directs you to do something. If you choose not to do it, where does it end? Do you want to have another fire district? Do you want to have another board that comes in here and does not do their job? I don't think so. I'm sick of it. I couldn't sleep nights years ago for the fear that nobody was going to respond to fire and rescue calls in my community. Inconceivable. It's inconceivable.
Mr. Guthrie, you've had 2 minutes, and I would like to allow other members of the public to speak, and you can come back again, okay?
Well, it would be nice if you would let me finish, because I'm not charging you a dime for it.
I am allowing everyone fairly 2 minutes, so I invite you to come back. Is there anyone on Zoom? Excuse me, Mr. Guthrie, would you please sit down? Thank you. Is there anyone, any other members of the public who would like to speak? Please come forward.
I'm at propose 9 Gillis Street, and I'd like to give my 2 minutes to Joe Andrioli.
I want to check to see if there's anyone on Zoom who would like to speak. If you're on Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to speak. I see no one right now. Is that right, Cody? Okay, fine. There is one person who, would you bring that person in? Please state your name and your address, please, Mr. Angel.
Hi, Ray Angel, and I'll give my 2 minutes to Mr. Guthrie.
Okay, thank you. I think everyone's in line to speak for someone else, okay? I think, Mr. Andrioli, you had the floor first. 2 more minutes, please.
You know what's disheartening, which should be disheartening to every single taxpayer who's watching this, everybody in the room. As soon as I got up, or the public got up, to confront the issue that they spent an hour just like a dog chasing its tail, they got up and left. That should speak volumes to you as the council. They don't want this problem fixed. We need to fix this problem. People will die. People will get injured. Property will get lost. That district, Central Coventry, makes up the lion's share of your fire and rescue protection. Ms. Fagan got up and just talked about, oh, they'll have to come mutual aid. There's only 2 people in Hopkins Hill on a 24-hour basis, 2. So if there's a heart attack on one side of the district, they're taking care of that person. There's no one else to come. So yes, it looks good on paper. There's this mutual aid. There's mutual aid throughout the state, but each department has got to do their due diligence to try to protect, to the best of their ability, the people that live in their district. Central is the lion's share of that work. You as a council, I would implore you to really look at that, because it does impact the town. Yes, they are a freestanding municipal entity, but that's just on paper. Tell that to the 911 person that can't get a rescue to their house. They don't care if it's the Coventry, if it's Hopkins Hill. They live in Coventry, they call 911, they want help. We need to come together collectively. I think the district should think about trying to put a financial Band-Aid on it with oversight, with complete oversight from you. Please consider giving the money to keep these gentlemen employed and keep you protected, but don't do it without 100% guarantee that you are counting the pennies. Please do not leave it to the powers that are in place right now. I've sat here in front of these people, in front of Mr. DiAgostino for years with the plan. Ms. Corrigan said 5 years ago she had the plan, and we're back here. Now she wants $3 million from the state. I will fall off my chair if the state of Rhode Island gives Ms. Corrigan and this district $3 million.
Thank you, Mr. Andrioli. You may sit down. Thank you. Any other members of the public who have not spoken yet who would like to speak? Okay, anyone else on Zoom who has not spoken? Okay. Please state your name and address.
Anthony Nautilillo, 10 Colby Drive, Coventry. I would just like to point out to the council that I'm speaking as a private citizen. I am a member of another board, but that has nothing to do with these comments. Central Coventry Fire obviously is a serious issue for this town as a whole. And I don't know what the solution is. My concern is the board has proven for the last several years they cannot manage the district. The guys show up, do their job, but things are going wrong. And I don't know what the solution is. I wish I did. But how much more can we throw good money after bad trying to solve a problem that the board itself is refusing to fix? And as a council, I don't know how much you can do or how much oversight you can provide, but I think there needs to be some additional oversight, maybe like a subcommittee or something from the council to monitor what's going on, because it does affect people's lives. And as far as the mutual aid aspect, like Chief Brown said, mutual aid is exactly that. It's mutual. If you can't get aid from somebody, you're not going to give it to somebody. And And so, like I said, that's just what I have to say on it. And I hope that the council will have more of an impact on decisions being made in the district. I hope the district will give some of that power to the council, and things can move forward for the residents of Central Coventry Fire so they can sleep at night knowing they're safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Godfrey?
Thank you. And I'd like to know if you'd give me like 6 minutes instead of 2 minutes, and I can end. Otherwise, Madam President,
yes,
I'll ask 3 more people to give their time to me. So 6 minutes is not a lot to ask. I actually wrote something down for 3.
Thank you. Thank you. Please be respectful.
I am.
Okay.
As best I can.
We'll start with you, and there may be other members who decide that they would like to speak. So we'll start with you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. You all know that Judge Stern liquidated this district, and the town council at the time sat in this room and loaned $300,000 to that fire district to keep them operating until their next available funds to move. Never uttered a word on why they did it. I'm going to tell you why they did it, because of the law I mentioned. It's there. It is there. You have the opportunity to put this question to the voters. And I actually put this on my agenda on charter review because I want people to know that it's there. It was kept as a big secret back then when the loan was made. Nobody wants to travel down that road. But we are at a real breaking point here. You have the authority by resolution, just 3 of you, to create a townwide fire department and begin to rebuild. If you make it another fire district, you will have to deal with another fire district board, and you'll be back in the same situation. Now, I've spoken with many of you on this, and I'm passionate about it because I had to deal with it because a certain legislator wants to kill the fire department just to say she could do so. I'm sorry. I can't allow that, nor should you. So you can tell why I'm upset about this. She's using that district board to put a question to the voters that they're going to vote against. She's a genius by getting other people to do her dirty work. Step up and do what's right.
Thank you, Mr. Godfrey.
And I may be back. We'll see.
Are there any other members of the public who would like to speak? Yes, please. State your name and address, please.
Jonathan Pasqua, 222 Raccoon Run Road in Coventry. I'll try and get this in 2 minutes. Safer grants are offered annually. So that means there have been several opportunities to apply for safer funding after the overtime law was passed, knowing this was going to happen. Coventry has received them in the past. I've done FEMA grants for Coventry Fire District. It's not extremely difficult. And to be honest with you, federal government can't give away these safer grants fast enough. I've talked to Jack Reed about this. The year before the 8.9 budget failure for Central Coventry, she said that Ms. Corrigan stated that the taxpayers agreed to a 4% increase. That is incorrect. Central Coventry forced that 4% increase down the throat of the taxpayers using the governor's emergency COVID measure as a cloak. So the taxpayers did not agree to a 4% increase. The statement that the Coventry Fire District is adding firefighters, that's actually a misleading statement. They are adding firefighters, but it does not increase minimum manning. Over the next 3 years, they add manpower to go up to 12, but there's still a 2-man minimum. It does not increase the response of that district. Ms. Corrigan couldn't give you a number on Engine 7. That was the truck in question about paying it off early. The truck was purchased in 2017 for $445,000. They paid it off roughly maybe a year later, maybe that year. I don't know for sure. But Those notes are typically 10 plus years, and most of the beginning payments are all interest. So that number is somewhere around that $445,000 that was just arbitrarily paid off. And Ms. Corrigan also mentioned EMS recovery loss. What she didn't tell you is in 2020, the federal government had CARES Act money, and the Anthony Fire District received a good portion of that to make up for our rescue recovery losses. Central Coventry either didn't get it for whatever reason, they didn't ask for it, I don't know, or they weren't clear in telling you that that made up for some of that loss. The last thing I'm gonna bring up real quick here. This problem has been going on for years. It started in 2012, almost 10 years ago. It went to state receivership in 2013. The ask has been to the taxpayers over and over again about budget increases, major threats of fire departments collapsing and everything else. And these are serious issues. So some of the most serious issues this town will ever face. Since this happened, the town council's changed. State legislatures, with the exception of one of them, has changed. The fire chief has changed. The union membership at the top level who negotiate the contracts has changed. Everybody has changed, but the problem is still here. The common denominator are the people who are running the Central Coventry Fire District have not changed. And you're repeating the same problem over and over again. And it's not going to go away. It's going to pop back up. And I can't really stress how serious this issue is. If the Central Coventry Fire District fails to respond in June, there are buildings in this town that have to have a fire department protecting them. Otherwise, you can't have people in them, like schools. You can't have people in these buildings if there is no Central Coventry Fire District. That's where we're headed. And Mr. Guthrie did mention about the previous town council. They knew this issue, and that's why.
Your time is up. Eloquent, but your time is up right now.
President Dixon, can you just let him finish? Just be a little judicious.
I want to be fair to everyone, and I have.
I think he was getting to the end, but
I don't know if he was getting to the end.
If somebody wants to give me their 2 minutes, I'll go.
You can have my 2 minutes.
and we got to exercise a little bit of patience.
We are. Yeah. Thank you. Quickly finish, please. I want to be fair to everyone, and I
Absolutely.
said 2 minutes, and I'm trying to keep to it. So if I give you 5 minutes and someone else says 2, that's not fair to everyone.
Absolutely.
And I did say people could come back. So
Absolutely.
please finish
I
up.
appreciate that. Thank you. So in conclusion, when we lose Central Coventry Fire District in a few months, you're going to have a giant black hole in this town. You're going to not be able to put people in nursing homes. You're not going to be able to put these people in these areas. The fire department has to protect these fire alarm systems to tie it into the local fire department. Anthony, Hopkins Hill, Western have no obligation to respond. You can't count on their response, and then they won't be recognized, even if they do. So your problem is huge. And the last town council did know this, and that is why they gave that emergency loan, because they knew the problem moving. But in conclusion, that's what I was going with this. It's a major problem, and it needs to be addressed. And honestly, the solution to this is one department. 100%, we have to have one fire department, whether it's a district first and a town department or a town department right away. That has to be seen. But you need a townwide fire department desperately. This is not going to go away unless you do that.
Thank you very much. Mr. Guthrie.
Thank you. This might be my last 2 minutes. If I had gotten 6 minutes, it would have been easier. As an aside,
We didn't need that comment.
Well, I'm sorry.
But continue on.
I'm sorry, but sometimes I see the rules bent. So, as an aside, in my fire district, I reside in Anthony. I went to the fire board meeting, and they were going to cut the tax rate by 2 cents because they expected a $50,000 savings on the new streetlights. And then I read in the budget that they boosted the legal fees to $100,000. So I asked the solicitor of the fire district, why would we be putting $100,000 aside for a fire district? And his answer was, well, we sued the town and we won $100,000. So philosophically, I sued myself. I'm a Coventry resident and gave that money to legal counsel, which is now in the budget. That $50,000, which is yet to be proved if it's going to be saved or not, could have put 2 firefighters back on. I think the job as fire district councils is to hire firefighters and rescuemen, not attorneys. We don't need attorneys. They argue both sides. We have a conflict right now where the attorney for you, all right, is in the same firm as the attorney for the Central Coventry Fire District. This is an issue. And I'm wondering, where are we going to go with this? Should we look outside of, the town's legal counsel and the fire district's legal counsel? It seems to be becoming a moneymaker for lawyers. And the people that are suffering are the people that are calling for the fire department, for the rescue department, because the lawyers aren't going to show up. We have a problem. It needs to be addressed. You have the tools. They were put in by a gentleman by the name of Senator Everett Hudson Sr. You may know the name or not know the name. I've been living here all my life. He sat on the board of canvassers here for probably 40 years and loved it, enjoyed the town. So here we are where we don't know what to do. This is going to be on my agenda again this week. That's the only way that I can get it to the people. And those are the people that need to make that decision. I had planned on not dealing with this until maybe June and asking you, in order to make some kind of thing work in this town, let's send it to the people where they belong as a charter question. Do you want to get rid of the fire tax? Have the town run it? Yes or no? I know what the answer is going to be. It's going to be a resounding yes. I'm not afraid to ask the question, and you shouldn't be either. But here we are now because Central Coventry has an emergency, and that emergency was generated. That budget or that question will not be voted yes. And I fear, that people are going to suffer for that. And when that judge liquidates that district, mind you, they're going to liquidate it. There's going to be no more fire trucks. 3 of the 5 fire stations have been sold to operate that budget. 3 fire stations sold. One of them was sold at 9 a.m. At 2:00 in the afternoon, it was resold by the purchaser. Tell me that wasn't an inside deal. That was an inside deal. Bill's Pizza bought the Harris Fire Station. Wanted to move in there. Nope. He decided that, I'll just knock it down and make a parking lot. Can't. National Historic Register. It's a registered historic building. Waltham Fire Station is sold. Put a brand new roof on it before it was sold. I don't know if the taxpayers paid for that or if the potential purchaser paid for it. But we have problems where things are happening that you have no control of, but you are responsible for by Section 1202 in the Charter. 1202 in the Charter says that you are responsible for fire protection and all ancillary things that goes with it. Rescue. Keep that in the back of your mind. It is time. You can make a decision next time you put an agenda together and end it all and start from scratch. You'll have all of their budgets. You'll have all of their properties, all of their debt, but at least you'll have a starting point. This has become a dog and pony show that just needs to go away. I don't want to die. I don't want my parents to die or my in-laws to die. Nobody. But something really, really bad is going to happen because a fire district, which you have no control over, could kill someone and you pay for it.
Thank you.
Just one last word.
You've had an additional 6 minutes, Mr. Guthrie, okay? Plus the other minutes that you had before. So you've had ample time. Thank you so much for your comments. We appreciate it.
As exiting, I just want you to know that your name is at the top of the list to be sued.
Okay, thank you so much. And I believe the comments you made were those that you had made at the Charter Review Commission meeting. Another speaker, yes. Your name and address, please.
James Kuipers, 20 Ginger Trail. I have 2 points I want to make. First, Mr. Andreoli, I think I'll say suggested. Well, first of all, let me say this. I was a member of the board of Central Coventry Fire District for about a little over 2 years until the beginning of January of this year. Mr. Andreoli made a suggestion that perhaps the activities that are going on here with this district were purposeful by some of the members of the board. I don't know if they're purposeful or not. I have my own thoughts, but I'll keep them to myself. But they're certainly either purposeful or irresponsible. And I firsthand witnessed activities that I would say, in my personal opinion, were irresponsible and that could have been taken and weren't taken. Talked about safer grants. You've heard from other people about them, but I was there and I saw it firsthand. And I'll leave you with one other comment that no one's made. But when we talk about these districts, maybe this one fire district, I have the unique position of giving you an incredible example. I live at 20 Ginger Trail in the Central Coventry Fire District. My tax bill is $680.15. My neighbor at 24 Ginger Trail, 2 houses from me, less than 100 feet from me, well, let's say maybe 150 feet. His house is valued differently than me. But if his house were valued at the same as mine, he would pay $28 more in taxes than me. Kind of odd, huh? You know why? He's in the Anthony Fire District. That's how ridiculous this is. The guy 2 houses from me pays more in taxes simply because he's in a different district. If our houses were valued the same, he pays a lot more than me because his house is valued a little more than mine. That's insane. I probably, if I tracked that, I bet you I probably am closer to the Anthony Fire Station than I am to Chief Brown's on Honor Road. It's backwards. It's upside down. It's whatever you want to call it. We got to fix it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there any other member of the public who would wish to speak? Is there anyone on Zoom who would like to speak? Please raise your hand. Any other members of the public to speak? Okay, I'd like to thank all of you who participated this evening, who came in to listen to the discussion and to ask questions or to make comments. Thank you so much. May I have a motion to adjourn at 8:28?
So moved.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Roll call. Mrs. Shockley?
Yes.
Mrs. Lima?
Yes.
Miss Ludwig?
Yes.
Mr. LeBlanc?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon? Yes. 5 yeas, no nays. The motion passes. The meeting is adjourned at 8:28.